everyone and welcome to my July reading wrap up. First of all, you might be able to hear the washing machine and the dryer in the background. Apologies for that. And second of all, it is pretty hot today, so I might look a bit flustered. Today is actually one of the cooler days, so that's why I decided to film today. But it's still very humid and suffocating, and it's just very hot in the Netherlands right now. And also the lighting is a little bit weird, but anyway. So in July I had such an amazing reading month. I finished 9 books, and out of those books I believe I had 4 5-star reads. That's insane. I loved it. I did some readathons and it was amazing. But yeah, let's just get started with this wrap up because it's probably going to be a long one. So yeah, I'm going to tell you all about the books that I read in July. The first book that I read this month was My Plain Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton and Jodie Meadows. This is a sort of a retelling of the story of Jane Eyre, but instead they make the story really funny and really silly. This is the sort of sequel to My Lady Jane, which I read last year, which is the same sort of book but about Lady Jane Grey. But yeah, this one is about Jane Eyre, and I had been anticipating it very much because I loved My Lady Jane so much. And yeah, I was definitely not disappointed with My Plain Jane. I enjoyed it so much. This book is cute, it's silly, it's all over the place. Charlotte Bronte herself is a character in this book. You're not really meant to take My Plain Jane seriously, and I absolutely did not do that. There are all sorts of funny references in this book to modern popular culture. There's like a Harry Potter reference and a Lord of the Rings reference, and every time something happened like that, it made me laugh very much. Yeah, this book is just cute, it's funny, it's lighthearted. I love this style of storytelling very much, and I just love these sorts of retellings. I love it when a book is not too serious. I personally think the concept is brilliant, and yeah, I'm just very excited that I was finally able to read My Plain Jane, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Then the next book that I read this month was Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. This is the second book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy. I read the first book, Daughter of Smoke and Bone, a couple of months back, and I really loved that book. So I thought it was about time that I would pick up the sequel to that. This is a trilogy that is very hard to explain, but it's sort of a fantasy series. It's about a girl named Carew who lives in 2 worlds. She lives in a normal human world, but she also partly lives in this magical fantasy world with angels and chimera. Yeah, that's all I can say about the premise, but it's very like epic and magical and whimsical. So yeah, I read Days of Blood and Starlight and I enjoyed it, but I have to say that I did like Daughter of Smoke and Bone better. I don't know why, maybe because Days of Blood and Starlight could be a little bit slow at times. It took me quite a while to get through this book because it was so slow. I mean, I still loved everything that I loved about the first book. I loved the characters, I loved the world building. I especially loved Laini Taylor's magical and whimsical writing style. Like, it's so amazing. So it's still a really good story, but there were parts of it that were just a little bit boring to me, and I think it took a while for this book to get going. But the parts that were interesting really were interesting. And as I said, I still love this world very much, and I still love this story very much. And the series in total so far is still a very good fantasy series, and I love fantasy so much. So Days of Blood and Starlight, it was still a very good book, just not an extremely good book as I thought the first one. So I gave Days of Blood and Starlight 4 out of 5 stars. Then next I read The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. This is a very serious, heavy book, and it's about a girl named Eden. And Eden gets raped by the best friend of her older brother at the beginning of the book. And then the entire book is about her dealing with that and how it affected her, and it takes place over the span of 4 years, so we basically see Eden go through high school. So I was very much impressed with The Way I Used to Be. It was a very emotional, heavy read, but at the same time it was also so intriguing, and I felt for Eden so much. I think this book really gave a good insight in how traumatic an event can be like that, and how it can affect you for years and years. And yeah, as I said, this book just made me very emotional. I was really like, I read it in like the span of a day. I read most of it, by the way, during a 24-hour readathon that I vlogged. So if you want to see that, then I can leave a link to that down below in the description box. But anyway, I thought The Way I Used to Be was a very impressive mental health book. I can definitely recommend it. I haven't read a lot of books about this topic yet. But yeah, as I said, I thought it was very emotional, very heavy, but so good, and I gave The Way I Used to Be 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is a book about a man named Aidan, and Aidan relives the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle 7 different times through 7 different bodies, and it's basically his job to solve the murder. So yeah, I have to say I have so many conflicting feelings about this book. This is also one that I read part of during my 24-hour readathon, but after that it took me like 2 weeks to finish it because it was so hard to get through at points, and also because it's incredibly massive. But yeah, The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, the first 80 pages are really confusing. Then after that you know a little bit more, but then towards the end it gets really confusing again, and I just have so many conflicting feelings about it because the concept I think is really original, and I think the execution is really clever, and it was very interesting at times, and I was very curious to see like who murdered Evelyn Hardcastle. But then also, as I said, it was really confusing, it was really weird at times. I really did not understand where the story was going towards the end. In the end, I think it was a good book, but maybe just not a good book for me. I don't know, I did enjoy it, but I also just felt mixed about it. It's so weird, I don't really know what to say about this book. So yeah, in the end I gave Evelyn Hardcastle 4 out of 5 stars, but I think I might lower it to like 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's just not as amazing as I thought it would be. Maybe it's also because my expectations were really high, and I don't know. Then in July I also reread City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. This time I listened to the audiobook of this, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked the narrator, and it was very nice just to like listen to this story. And yeah, City of Ashes is of course the second book in the Mortal Instruments series. I read the entire series for the first time last year, but I'm now rereading it because I loved it so much. And yeah, I listened to City of Ashes and I enjoyed it again as I did last year. But I have to say, out of all of the Mortal Instruments books, this one is definitely my least favorite. It's just not, the characters aren't as amazing as they're going to be in later books. And there's also this storyline in this book that makes me really uncomfortable and cringy. And if you know the series, you probably know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's still very enjoyable, and it's part of a very, very enjoyable series. So I love my reread, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars as I did last year. Then the next 2 books I read during the 24 in 48 readathon. I have an entire reading vlog of that again, and I will also put a link to that down below in the description box if you want to see my initial reactions. But anyway, the first book that I read during that readathon was Sight by Neil Shusterman. This is a dystopian YA book about a world where death and disease no longer exists. Like basically all the problems of humanity are solved. But because of that there are also sites who have to basically kill people to still keep the population under control. And yeah, that's basically the premise of this book. And this is of course a very popular book that has been very much hyped up around BookTube in the past couple of months. My expectations for Sight were really high, and fortunately they were met. I loved Sight so much. I was so invested into the story. I really loved the original concept about like death no longer being a thing, and these sites who have to kill people and what that means to them. It's just so weird, but it really makes you think about like mortality and society, and how certain things have less meaning when you're no longer mortal, and like what things in life are important. And it's just so funny to think about. And yeah, I just love what they did with that concept in this book. It fascinated me, it intrigued me. I kept on reading. The world building was amazing. It really felt like a very realistic, like dystopian world of our like Earth. So yeah, I loved Sight. I loved it so much. It was amazing. And yeah, of course I gave Sight 5 out of 5 stars. Then next I read another amazing book. And that is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So it's funny because it's another like Evelyn with 7 in the title, but like I didn't plan it like this. But anyway, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is about a famous actress from like the 1950s, 60s named Evelyn Hugo, who has been married 7 times. And in this book she tells her life's story to a journalist named Monique. So yeah, basically this book is her life's story and everything she went through, and like it's all about how she became famous and about all her husbands. And yeah, this is also a very popular, well, historical fiction book because it mostly takes place in the 1950s, 60s. And let me tell you, this book is so mind-blowingly amazing. It was so good. I loved it. It was tragic, it was beautiful, it was emotional. I was just drawn into this story and I basically finished it in one afternoon and one night. The writing style is amazing. You really felt like the atmosphere of like Hollywood in the 1950s and 60s. And I also loved Evelyn Hugo herself so much. What I loved about it is that she really isn't a perfect character. She has a lot of flaws, but she's very like human. She felt like a very real person to me, and it talks about a lot of very real and very relatable topics, and I just loved that. Like it almost felt like Evelyn Hugo was a real actress back in the days. I almost wanted to Google her and then I was like, no, this person doesn't really exist. But this book makes it feel like that, and I just loved her and I wanted to know more about her. And yeah, basically I just loved everything about it. It made me feel all sorts of emotions. It is so beautiful. I cannot say how much I love this book. It's hard to express. This is definitely like in my top 3 favorite books of the year so far. And of course I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I would give it 10 out of 5 stars. It's just so impactful and beautiful. Then the next book that I read this month was What Ellis Forgot by Liane Moriarty. This book is about a woman named Ellis who hits her head and then loses 10 years of her memories. So from her perspective, she's 29, but then she suddenly wakes up and she is 39, she has 3 kids and she doesn't recognize her own life. And yeah, I thought this was a thriller because Liane Moriarty also writes thrillers, but it isn't. It's actually more like a fluffy contemporary, but like I was okay with that. So the thing is with this book, I don't think like the quality of it is amazing. I don't think like it's a really good book or whatever, but I still really enjoyed it because it was exactly the right book that I wanted to read at the time. Because basically I had just read 2 amazing 5-star reads, so I wanted to read something more simple, something more lighter, and this book was just perfect for that. I flew through it again. It was just fun, it was just entertaining, but it isn't like an amazing book whatsoever. I think I thought it was quite slow at times and I dragged it out a bit too long. I found it annoying how nobody really tells Ellis what's going on. So like you have a little bit of suspense, but like I don't understand why they don't just tell her certain things straight away. But like still I just really enjoyed it because it was just exactly the right book I was craving at the moment. And yeah, I gave What Ellis Forgot 3 out of 5 stars. It's just a very okay book, but I still really enjoyed it because I was just so in the right mood for this sort of book. And then the final book that I read this month was Never Let You Go by Chevy Stevens. This is about a woman named Lindsay, and 11 years ago she and her young daughter fled from her abusive husband. But now her husband is being released from prison and she suspects that he's coming after her and her daughter. So this definitely is a thriller, and I love reading thrillers during the summer. I've said that many times before. I have to say though, I was quite underwhelmed by this book. Like it wasn't a very interesting or like very exciting thriller. The thing is, with thrillers these days, I can very easily predict how it's going to end. And with this book, I predicted it like almost straight away. So there wasn't really any suspense for me. I thought it was quite obvious to me. It was still an enjoyable book to read like during a heat wave, what we're having right now in the Netherlands. It was fun. I loved the sort of story. I loved the writing style. It's an okay book. I just wish it had been more exciting and less predictable. But still, it wasn't bad or anything. It's fun. And I gave this one also 3 out of 5 stars, but maybe I want to lower it a little bit. I don't know. So yeah, that was it for my July reading wrap up. I am melting right now. It's so hot. And my hair is a mess, but I made it. I filmed this video. I'm so proud of myself. Anyway, I'm so happy that I had such an amazing reading month. I just love the summer and I love having a lot of time to read. But this was it now for this video. And if you like this video, please go subscribe or maybe give it a thumbs up because I would really appreciate that. And then hopefully I will see you again in my next video. Bye!